This video provides a view on how Kognetics simplifies sell-side mandate sourcing. We address questions right from which are the sub-industries that are likely to see M&A activity, identifying high-growth private companies in a particular industry, to who can potentially acquire a company. Let's show you how. First, we determine which emerging segments in a sub-industry will see M&A activity. Go to Idea Generation for Investment Banks, select Sell Side, click on Predict which emerging sub-industry in a sector will see M&A activity. Select the preferred sector from the drop-down menu or type in the sector name and submit. The output to this question clearly outlines the acquisition likelihood for all the industry segments in the selected sector. Kognetics determines this on a real-time basis, taking into account a host of variables including industry maturity, acquisition and exit momentum, growth momentum of companies in that industry, population of private companies, number of companies that are due for an exit in that industry, and lastly, the total number of large strategics in that sector who have that respective sub-industry as a critical gap. These variables are also exposed to the end user, and one can filter the results using any of these data points. Let's filter industry segments where acquisition likelihood is very high. Based on this analysis, endpoint detection and response, EDR, seems promising, with high exit momentum as well. One can also view the output using stack visualization. Navigate to that by clicking on the stack visualization icon on the left menu bar. This view gives a stack output of the selected sector with each sub-industry segment colored based on the acquisition likelihood. One can further edit the view by clicking on this icon here and filtering the segments to the ones that have high exit momentum. To analyze the sub-industry further, one can click on it. For example, click on Endpoint Detection and Response to see all the relevant questions that Kognetics can answer about this industry, like key acquisitions, exits, PE-backed companies, institutional financiers, and much more. Select what are all the companies in a sub-industry. Kognetics maps companies to its granular industry taxonomy based on the products and services offered by them. There's also an option to use filters on country, company type, or business signals, and then submit. The output is a view of all companies that have Endpoint Detection and Response, EDR, as an offering. For every company, you will have its basic firmographics, including number of employees and year of inception. However, to shortlist companies further, one can filter these companies by their funding information, funding momentum, acquisition momentum, and patent momentum, or by business signals. Kognetics ingests news from a multitude of sources, and using its natural language processing and text analytics pipelines, tracks over 45 business signals for every company. These business signals convert a host of unstructured information about a company into structured insights, which can then be used for analysis. For example, to identify growing private companies in EDR, you can filter the companies with company type private, and then filter the companies for which Kognetics has captured growth signals like company awards and recognition, customer growth funding activity, reported revenue increase, workforce increasing, etc. You now have 16 companies that satisfy your filtered criterion. By the way, the provenance for each one of these signals is also available in the application. For example, clicking on Reported Revenue Increase will let me see the link to the news and the snippet from where the signal was picked up from. You can click on the news and go through the complete news article as well. You can also consume the output using a graph visualization by clicking on the Graph Output button from the left panel. Here, In the output, you see two nodes. The ones in blue are the company nodes, and the ones in green are the industry nodes. You can further filter or color or size these nodes by clicking on this icon here. Let's say I would like to see companies that are due for an exit. I can filter companies where the company type is private, the total funding rounds are greater than or equal to 3, and the total funding is greater than or equal to 30 million. I can then size these nodes by total funding and then also color them by total funding. We now have 12 companies with Tanium, Carbon Black, Digital Guardian, Sentinel-1, and Cybereason as some of the highly funded companies that are due for an exit. By clicking on a company, I can also view brief details of the company. So here you have brief details on Cybereason, including its funding details, and one can then click on the name of the company to ask further questions about the company. You can check the profile of the company or ask questions about its competitors, public company comparables, precedent transactions, strategic gaps, or you can even ask who can potentially acquire the company. Select the question, who can potentially acquire the company, and submit. Kognetics, on a real-time basis, looks at the target company's firmographics, industry presence, funding, financials, people and partnership information, and then creates a list of potential acquirers that have presence in segments that are adjacent to or are converging with the target's industry segment. This list is then prioritized based on several factors, such as the convergence intensity between the target and acquirer segments, acquirer's size relative to target, presence and acquisition momentum of the acquirer in the target sector, common affiliations between target and the acquirer, and existing partnerships of the acquirer with the target or with companies similar to the target. Each of the potential acquirers is then also categorized based on their acquisition likelihood from very high to very low. Additionally, Kognetics also, on a runtime basis, articulates the acquisition rationale for each of the potential acquirers in the list. You can filter the acquirers to the ones that have high acquisition likelihood, and then also look for acquirers that can potentially acquire the target for scale or for scope. For example, Microsoft, Symantec, Cisco will acquire Cybereason for scale. However, IBM, Proofpoint, and SAP will acquire the company for scope. Another way to generate sell-side opportunities is as follows. Under Sector Analysis, go to Ecosystem Analysis. Ask the question, who are the key institutional financiers in a sector? Select the sector of your choice and press Submit. The output brings out all the investors with exposure in cybersecurity and identifies companies showing growth signals in their portfolio, as well as companies that are due for an exit. Click on any company to look at their potential acquirers. Now, quickly, let us develop a view on the valuations for Cybereason by looking at public company comparables and precedent transactions. Let's check the public company comparables for Cybereason. Click on the company name, choose List of Public Company Comparables for a company, select the sector, industry, country, and comparables, and then Submit. This query returns Cybereason's comparable companies and their valuations. Now, see only the relevant columns like company and its revenue and EBITDA multiples. You can also download the results for further analysis. Similarly, click Cybereason and choose List of Precedent Transactions for a company. Use the Add Remove Columns button to see the transaction multiples and other relevant columns based on your requirements. Hope this was helpful. There is much more possible with Kognetics. Log on to www.kognetics.com.